I see we have our guest in the background, and I'm going to introduce her to us shortly. And Brother Dex, I'm just going to ask you to stand by while I bring her information up. And also, I want to share with the audience one of the pictures that I have of this amazing woman, this amazing survivor. Her name is Amanda Blackwood, and her story is one that is truly, truly, truly amazing. So let me tell you a bit about our guest. And it says that she is coming out from mess to become the messenger. Amanda says overcoming human trafficking was no small miracle. She's a survivor of human trafficking who is now an accomplished artist and author, public speaker, podcast host, and trauma recovery mentor. Despite the numerous challenges she faced, she was able to emerge stronger with the help of her faith. And that impresses me a lot. She has shared her story on various platforms, such as international summits and radio programs, and has published over a dozen books. That's a lot. I don't know how she got the time to do it. She also has two podcasts. Wow, amazing. So, without further ado, let us welcome our guest, Amanda Blackwood. How are you,
I'm
Amanda?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much, Andy. And how are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing fine. Thank you. Just trying to adjust to having someone of your caliber in our studio and joining us on breaking out of depression. I want to ask you a personal question, though, before we get into our interview. How is your grandson doing?
Oh my goodness. He is getting stronger and bigger every single day. So he's now, gosh, he was born on the 30th. So he's 6 days old. So he's not quite a week. And he was in the hospital for his first few days or so. He was having some lung issues, but he's doing better now.
Oh, yeah. Thank God for that. That sounds good. Thank you for sharing, Amanda. Amanda, I really want to have more time for you to share with us your amazing story, but particularly the fact that you kept your faith, you recovered, and now you're a beacon of hope for many who are still struggling with so many aspects of trauma in their lives. And I want to inform our audience that this is the moment that you need to listen carefully and understand that this story is quite unusual. We have had nothing like this before on our program. So ask your questions, make your comments, and interact with Amanda. She is here for that purpose, particularly. Amanda, what is the most amazing part of your story? I'm just going to leave it up to you to decide what is best to share with us as we go along. But when you think about your story, what is the most amazing part of your story for you that you'd really like people to be enlightened by?
It's got a faith aspect to it, honestly. When
Mm,
I look back on everything that I went through, I know that one of the most strong trauma reactions that somebody can have is a crisis of faith. And while I did try to pretend like I didn't have any faith for a little while, that never really worked out for me. And I always had my faith. And at no point through everything that I ever survived did I ever say, "Why are you doing this to me, God?" Because I knew that God wasn't the one that was doing it to me, it was man.
mm,
God was the one who was helping me to survive all of it. I
yeah.
had nobody else on this earth to be able to lean on except God.
Wow. Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Now, at the end of the day, what is the best advice that you would give, Amanda, to persons who are struggling with trauma and finding it hard to come out of that place of darkness? and become enlightened, what would you love to share with them so that they could get a clearer understanding that there's hope?
So many of us are sitting around waiting for the apologies from the people that hurt us, and we have to
Mhm.
stop doing that. We have to learn to accept an apology that we will never receive, because it is not up to the people who hurt us to give us the power to heal. God does that. We do that. Our own determination and understanding and hard work is what does that. We have to stop waiting around for the people who hurt us to give us permission to do this. Once you get to that point, once you understand that, yes, you have come through trauma, that's when you're ready to start doing the hard work and to really seek out the help that you need to be able to move beyond the past and leave being a victim in the past and move into being a survivor and a thriver in the future.
Yeah, great. But I want to dig a little deeper. If you can go back and recall those moments when you had to crawl out of that hole, you spoke about the recovery of your faith or the sustenance of your faith. What else did you think you had to do to become so resilient? And in that practical moment, what was the thought process? What the mindset that you had to have so that you got the strength that was necessary to make the decisions, not to see yourself as a victim, but as someone who was heading to a place that was better, even though the odds were immediately not in your favor?
Oh, I had to dig deep and I had to hit rock bottom. So there is what we all think of as being rock bottom in our lives. And it might be the lowest point where we have been so far, but there can always come a time when things are lower. Always. And I hit that rock bottom in 2019. I had been living my life as a victim for all those years, from about 4 years old on until I was in my late 30s. And when I hit rock bottom, when I was attacked one last time, that's when I said, people keep finding me and they know about my past and they're accusing me of things that I didn't do, and they have the wrong idea of who I am. And finally, I said, you know what? If people are going to keep finding me, they're going to find out why. And I stepped into this place of starting to own my story instead of running from it, instead of being fearful of it. I stopped saying, oh gosh, all this stuff happened to me and I can't be who I'm supposed to be. Absolutely not. I had to become who it was that God was telling me that I needed to be. Because if I
Mm,
didn't step up and own my story, the story was going to own me. So
yeah.
that practical moment that hit like a brick upside the head.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Amazing. Amanda, how did you find the time, the patience, and the strength to pen 12 books? I mean, that's something. You must have had to do a lot of research, a lot of searching, deal with the publishers, deal with editors. What was that level of inspiration like for you?
Well, the first book I ever wrote, I originally wrote it in 2015, and it was a collection of all the funny stories that happened my first year on the job when I was a flight attendant. I did that for 2 years, 3 months, 28 days, not that I was counting. I loved it. I thought the job was a blast, and I collected all these really great short stories. So I put all these little short stories together, and I almost got a deal with one of the biggest publishing houses in the country. Everybody's heard of Penguin Publishing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the person that was my between myself and Penguin Publishing turned out to be not a very good person.
Mm,
And when I was told that if I didn't quit my job and move to another state and marry him, he wasn't going to help me anymore, I said, I'm
wow.
done. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
So a couple of years later, I decided I'm starting my own publishing company.
Mm-hmm.
So going through the publishing companies is no longer an issue for me. And I have begun helping other survivors of trafficking now to publish their stories as well. I don't do it for a flat fee. I take 10% of the overall profits,
Yeah.
not every penny that's made, because there's a lot of money that goes into everything else. involves publishing.
Right.
So my editor is somebody that I've known for years. She is phenomenal, and I'm not going to give her name out because she's so overbooked. I can't take a risk of somebody else hiring her and her not having time to do my stuff anymore. So there were so many things that helped with me being able to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
I published my first book in 2018. So all of these books since then have all come on average about 2 per year. Some of them I was writing while working 2 full-time jobs. But
Uh-huh.
in the last couple of years now, my husband has been this really incredibly gracious and supportive person who's allowed me to just follow my passions and my dream and that voice that God has given me to be able to get the message out there into the world. For the first
Yeah.
several books, I have no idea how I did it other than God
Wow.
putting a pin in my hand and saying, just do this, just get
Yeah.
it done.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you for sharing, Amanda. I want to focus on the story a bit, but I promised to do something, and I promised to share a picture, and I'm going to share. This is the one that I find most impressive. You, you look so relaxed and so effervescent, and your eyes are sending a deep level of conviction and contentment. Here's the thing that I want to ask you about your story. When you share with people, you say that you try to make it as palatable as possible. You try to create some level of not comedy, but to make it even more easier and adjustable for them to understand because the trauma was so deep. What is the kind of responses that you get? And do you get people coming to you and saying, wow, how did you do it? I feel like I can identify with you. I feel like it resonates with me. What are some of the responses that you've been getting from people?
I get that a lot, that I identify with that. Or one of my most heartbreaking moments, but always one of the most rewarding moments that I get is when I get down off of stage and somebody approaches me and says, I had no idea that what I went through was called human trafficking.
Yeah.
I was that person. In 2018, I went to an anti trafficking event out here in Colorado. I was sitting in the front row because I was all about stopping human trafficking. But when they broke it down and talked about what it actually is and not what the media portrays it as,
Hmm.
I understood finally that I had actually been through it myself.
Wow.
I was one of those people. And when you
Wow.
break it down and you can put it in these simple words, people start to kind of understand it a little bit more. And they
Hmm.
realize that what they've been fed is a
Hmm.
bunch of sensationalized stories.
Yeah.
And it can
Wow.
be really shocking. And a lot of people have gone through some kind of abusive situation in their life. It might
Yes.
not be human trafficking, but something like 60% of all people on earth have gone through some kind of trauma. We can all
Yeah.
relate in some way.
Yeah. Amanda, sometimes it's easy for us to really be angry, and we could be angry with the world because we feel that we are misaligned with so many things that are happening. But I think that sometimes what we need to do is to really align our values with two things. One, that which God has in plan for every man in this life. And two, at least ensure that it has a moral and an ethical compass. How important it is for people to recognize that they hold the sole responsibility for ensuring that their values align with something much more higher than what the world is currently offering today.
Oh my goodness. This is something I see every single day of my life. People are sliding down these deep dark holes and they don't understand why. They don't understand that they have to take responsibility for their own actions or their own uh, lack of actions in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
They're allowing things to happen because they don't understand the old adage of the only the only thing that it requires for evil to persist within the world is for good people to do nothing. You
Yeah.
could be a good person all day long, but if you're not doing something to step up and to stop the bad from happening, how are you any different from anybody else?
Yeah. Yeah. Really wonderful. So I see two comments. First of all, Pamela Destouche. Good night, and good night to you as well. Hi, hi. And Gracie Vincent says, just put all our trust in God. He gives us the strength to pull through. Hand praise, hand praise. Congrats to you, and it's nice that you can help others. Great job. That's for you, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Gracie. Thank you.
So, Amanda, I want you to explain to our audience, to our people, what is the true definition of trauma in terms of your personal experience, not all the sensationalization that the press is given and all the wonderful stories that they're doing just for the numbers. I'm not accusing, I'm just stating a fact. But from your personal experience, how would you really describe trauma and having that desire now and that opportunity to overcome?
Trauma is something that changes your brain. Many scientists agree that trauma is not just something that happens to you mentally, it is considered brain damage. It changes who you are. Because of trauma, you start to build up these neurosynapses in your brain that will tell you to react in different ways at something that seems to be pretty harmless to anybody else, but might be triggering to somebody else who has experienced trauma that's related to this thing. For kind of a rough example, if you pull up at a red light and you see somebody in a bright green shirt crossing the street in front of you, you may have a panic attack. And it could be something nobody else understands. But
Yeah.
your brain damage, your trauma, is telling you that a person in a green shirt once hurt you very badly, and you're
Mm,
terrified in that moment.
yeah. Yeah.
Trauma, it changes you.
Yeah.
The stages of trauma mirror the stages of grief for a very good reason.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're traumatized, you go through denial because that's what's going to get you through it for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go through anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And these are the exact same stages as the stages of grief because you have to grieve for the person you were going to be.
Yeah.
That person is no more.
Yeah. Wow. That's deep, Amanda. I mean, that's really deep. And sometimes I have to face the reality of people who come to us seeking our help. And we feel helpless when they tell us about their stories, their situation, their reality, because it goes so deep. And sometimes you wonder, how did someone who years ago appeared to be living a normal life and suddenly things just go wrong? And you realize that it is because of a process that had been taking place over a specific period of time. And we were not seeing the evidence, but something was happening in the background. There is something that we call the imposter syndrome, but there's also something about a certain level of depression that it could give you a feeling that you could deal with it, you could self medicate, self diagnose. But when you go outside there, the friend that you show people is one of laughter and you're looking good and you're sounding good. But when you get back to your place of reality, you're lonely and it's hard. How do we help people to make that transition based on your personal experience where they are now willing to deal and address with the reality of that trauma, that depression, that anxiety, and not continue to suffer alone?
The biggest key for me was discovering what my trauma reactions are and understanding that trauma reactions are a natural thing that happens when you've gone through a difficult time or something that is considered to be traumatic. You have to understand that there are long-term consequences to not dealing with these things. You have to face them head on, one at a time. You have to retrain your brain. And sometimes the best way to do that is to sit alone.
Yeah.
You have to sit by yourself and not be afraid of it. You have to get to know who you are, find what you desire, find what it is that you're missing, find what it is that God's telling you to do in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, my strongest trauma reaction was a need for control and
Yeah.
perfectionism.
Yeah.
These are both trauma reactions. And the best way to kind of work with those is to understand that life is like sitting in the backseat of a bus and trying to avoid the potholes. You cannot
Mm,
avoid the potholes.
yeah.
So take what you can control, like your reaction to the potholes or how comfortable your seat might be, and control those little things that you have. For me, it became writing. It was my artwork. It was podcasting. It was creating something through Canva. Having the ability to create something gave me this outlet to express myself and to a lot of times dig in and figure out what I was feeling. Because when you're a trauma survivor, you have a Swiss cheese brain sometimes, and you can't figure that out on your own.
Wow. Wow. Amazing, Amanda. I am moved. I can hear the passion in your voice. Tell us about two podcasts. Some people struggle with one. How are you managing? And what is the main message you're getting in the separate podcast, the audience that you're looking to reach and to address?
Well, I recently started two more podcasts. So as of January 1st,
Oh
that
boy.
number is going to be up to 4. It's insane.
Okay.
So
Okay. You go, girl. You go.
my main podcast is called The Survivors Stories of Hope Live On. And on that
Uh-huh.
podcast, every week I will interview another person who has survived some kind of a trauma and then written about their recovery. And the
Right.
reason I do this is because it's giving the listenership, the viewers, an opportunity to find something they can tangibly hold in their hands, this person's book, and to go through it and see if it might help them to come through what it is that they've been through.
Hmm.
The second podcast is called Growth from Darkness, and that one is co-hosted by a friend of mine in Australia. And it's a every other week we have an episode that comes out where we break down what one trauma reaction is, what the long-term consequences are, and how to fight back against it, retrain your brain. But we do this with a sense of humor, and we talk a lot about the times that these things would come up in our own lives. So we'll
Okay.
talk about road rage incidents, and we will have each other absolutely laughing hysterically because you have to have a dark sense of humor to get through some of this stuff.
Yeah, I understand. I understand fully. I do.
So my third podcast is called That's a Phobia. And I try to pronounce the word. It's hilarious. And then spell it out and then try to pronounce it again. Hopefully I do better. And then I'll just give the definition of what this phobia is and what the roots of it are, and if it's connected to traumas in some way, because a lot of them are. So it's only 1 to 2 minute episodes typically. The
Yeah.
one that starts in January is called Pod Zeal. And on
Hmm.
that one, I have podcast hosts send
Hmm.
in 5 to 7 minute videos talking about why they podcast,
Hmm.
who they are, and what their principles are, and all that good stuff. Just kind of talking about who they are behind the scenes. And
Okay.
that one starts January 1st.
All right. Congratulations. You have been doing quite well. I'm just one podcast behind you, though. I've got three.
Oh, my goodness.
I must recognize Dominica is in the house. Welcome, Dominica. Wow. So good to have that part of the Caribbean. I've been there at least on 3 occasions. So, Amanda, I want you to share with us the true definition of human trafficking for three reasons. One, people live in the dark and don't know and understand how serious it is. Two, it exists in every single part of the world. We have seen it. We know it's there. It's a thriving business for many. And three, we need to understand that we too, if we don't know what it is about, can somehow, God forbid, find ourselves as victims of human trafficking.
So I always tell people this isn't something that you should look up on Wikipedia or look up on Google, because these are resources that can be changed and altered by basically anyone with credentials. I always tell people if you want to know the real definition of trafficking, go somewhere that's going to be a reliable source.
Yeah.
I choose the Department of Homeland Security.
Hmm.
They define human trafficking. We'll have to be very careful with the wording.
Yeah.
They define human trafficking as the use of force, fraud, or coercion
Yeah.
to obtain commercial sex acts or labor from another
Mhm.
person. So
Mm-hmm.
if you notice, there's no mention of transportation, even though with trafficking, we automatically think of being in traffic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's human smuggling and there's human trafficking. And a lot of times they do overlap, but they are not the same thing. And one can easily exist without the other.
Yeah.
There's also no mention of age. So
Mm-hmm.
this does not only happen to people under the age of 18. That only makes up 1/4 of victims worldwide.
Wow.
There's no mention of how somebody is trafficked. So we hear about these kidnapping scenarios and we automatically think every time we hear of something that sounds like kidnapping or stranger danger, we think of human trafficking.
Yeah.
Stranger danger only equates to about 1 to 2% of all cases. Most people
Wow.
are trafficked by people they already know and trust
Yes.
and love.
Yeah.
And
So
the
sad.
other and the other point is that when we're talking about commercial sex acts, that does not equal money. So prostitution does not equal human trafficking, and human trafficking does not equal prostitution. There's a large overlap there again, but one is not always the other.
Wow. Thank you for clearing that up for us, Amanda. We appreciate that. I want to look at the recovery aspect. And we heard that you speak lovingly about your husband being there for you, being gracious and stuff. And thank God for that. But someone who has been a victim and needs people around them, family, to understand what they have been through and needs that support, what advice would you give to the family lacking that knowledge, lacking that information of the depth of what that person has gone through, but they need to play a role as well? How do we help them to understand what they can do to make things much more manageable for that victim that has been now recovering or is in a state of recovery after overcoming human trafficking?
It can be so difficult. I mean, it definitely depends on the person themselves, the person that is going through the recovery. In most cases, those people don't want to be treated any differently than how they've always been treated. Make the same jokes, make the same gestures. Don't look at them with pity. The last thing they want is your pity. The last thing they need is your pity.
Yeah.
Feeling like they are being pitied will keep somebody thinking and feeling like a victim for much, much
Wow.
longer.
Yeah.
Remind them that you're there for them. Remind them that they can talk to you about anything and be strength for them, but do not be weakness for them.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So much value in the content that you are sharing, Amanda. We appreciate it. So, here's the next aspect of what I'm looking at. In terms of the community, and there's a saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Unfortunately, what I'm seeing of what is happening in our world today, the village itself does not seem to be hopeful. It does not seem to be a place where you would actually want to raise your child. How important is it for the place that you're living in, the community, the culture in that place, the environment? What kind of impact that could take on someone who needs to find a place where they are truly in the process of recovery? Does it make a difference, the environment that you're in?
Up until 2019, I would have said no.
Hmm.
But when the bottom fell out from under me and I was desperate for help, I had to reach out to a local anti trafficking organization out here, and they paired me up with a therapist and they put me in this group with a bunch of other survivors of trafficking. And we would have this sense of community. I didn't have any family of my own. I had very few friends. None of my friends would ever understand if I told them about what it was that I had been through. And that sense of community that we built up, we didn't have to talk about what we went through. Just sitting in the room with them and understanding that these people don't judge me because they've been where I've been. That was monumental in helping me to recover and to get beyond what I had been through. I don't think I would be in the same place now if I hadn't had that at the time.
Wow. Community, man. That's so important, so vital. Wow. So you are a celebrating grandmom as we speak, and I see your face light up with that. Amanda is blushing. family is so very important. The Bible speaks clearly and definitively about the importance of family. But there are some people who don't have family. But there are other places like the community, maybe the church, or maybe a team of people that they have been introduced to. And you spoke about the community of survivors that you have been in. Is it necessary that we have that holistic balance when we are in that position of recovery? I mean, sporting social alignment with regards to people on the same level, or do we just transcend and try to take it as normal as possible? What's the dichotomy between the two?
God designed us to be sociable creatures.
Yeah.
We need that sense of community. We are designed to seek it out. I think part of the reason that we are seeing so many issues now with mental health aspects and more depression on the rise is that we have these incredible devices,
Yeah.
smartphones and
Yeah.
computers and things that will allow us to feel like we're connecting to people, except we're not. If anything, we are building more walls between us because
Wow.
now we don't have to interact with people in person. It
Yeah.
used to be if I would walk out of my house, a neighbor would say hello. Now, if
Mm.
I walk out of my house, the neighbor runs inside because they don't want to have any kind of social interaction. We think that this is the result of a social anxiety when really it is the cause of social anxiety.
Wow. Whew, that's telling. Ah, I think we need to put the thought for the week up. I think it aligns basically with what you're saying and the commentary that I did before. I'm going to read it out, but I would love to have our producer Dexter put it up. Thought for the week: see your pains today as the framework for your tomorrow. They unlock the door to your character and the future. I want to repeat that as you see it flash across the screen. Thought for the week: see your pains today as the framework for your tomorrow. They unlock the door to your character and future. So, as we continue, as we have Amanda in the house with us, let us remember that we can reach out, we can ask questions, we can make comments. We want you to be an integral part of what is happening here with the program on breaking out of depression. It's not about us, it's about you, the people that matters the most. Amanda, what does the future look like for you with regards to your continued commitment to helping people who have been victims of trauma and dealing with different levels of mental illness and behavioral patterns? Are there any large projects coming up in the future for you?
Always. And I never know how big they're going to get. Just
Oh,
recently, I set up monthly boot camps.
uh-huh.
Um, they are for free through Eventbrite, where people can join me once a month for either a human trafficking question and answer forum, or they can join me for a trauma recovery boot camp where we discuss what stage of trauma they're in so that they can start investigating a little bit more on how to move into the next stages and
Yeah,
find their way through recovery. So
right.
that's been huge for me, and I'm excited about it. My first couple of classes are actually already sold out.
Wow.
Um, and I have one of them coming up tomorrow. I'm so excited about this one. It's going to be it's going to be
Yeah,
so amazing.
yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing. What about another book in the making? Number 13?
Oh, I actually have number 13, but it's a cookbook, so I don't really
Ooh.
count that with all of them. So
It's a book.
the next books that I have coming out, I have the first book done from the Growth from Darkness series. It is a workbook on the stages of trauma and trying to figure out where you are in your trauma recovery. The second
Mm,
book in this series, which comes out next year, is going to be about the trauma reactions. The third
mm-hmm.
book will be about building healthy boundaries. And the fourth book, the fourth and final, will be
Yeah.
about how to support a survivor.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Great. Thank you for sharing. I want to look at the stages of recovery, and I'm thinking you have been through every single stage. You've had your deep and dark moments. You had the opportunity to be with the community. You had the support of family. On a scale, when you look at the balance, which one of these was the most important for you? Or are they all of equal value and importance holistically in the process of healing?
I would say probably the two biggest things for me were my therapy, which included writing and painting,
Hmm.
and my husband. Now, I went through all of this stuff and I published my book on my 10-year anniversary of freedom from trafficking
Wow.
back in 2021.
Hmm.
And the month after the book was published was when I met my husband.
Hmm.
I had to go through all of this stuff before I was ready to meet him. But having
Right.
met him now has helped me to continue this journey of being
Right.
able to discover really who I am and what my desires are and where I want to go with my future. And he's
Right.
right there with me every step of the way.
Wonderful. Hats off to him. So we have Corinne Nichols in the house. I'm seeing Dominica again, boy. Wow. A new fan club brewing there, and all because Amanda Blackwood is with us in the studio. Amanda, we have many challenges in the world today. And if you had the opportunity, let's say you had a megaphone and you can speak to the well, it's almost 9 billion people that exist on the planet now. Populations are growing so fast. What is the one definitive thing that you would love to say with regards to living a healthy and balanced lifestyle to people everywhere, irregardless?
You have to be willing to do the work. If you're seeing a therapist or a counselor, or if you're going to your friends and talking about what happened, these are great first steps. But there is no magic wand. You have to do the work. You have to be willing and ready to do the work. And recognize that the old phrase that we all grew up hearing, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, is absolutely a lie.
Hmm. Wow.
It is not your past. It is not your pain. It is not the people who hurt you who have made you stronger. It is God, and it is your desire to continue living.
Yeah.
That's where your strength came from. You don't
Mhm.
need those people to make you stronger.
Wow. That combination. Yeah, that's wonderful. And what would you say to the leaders, the ones who are supposed to be the exemplars and the ones who are supposed to provide the necessary infrastructure and facilities for people to at least have the opportunity to live a fair life? The leaders of the world, what would you say to them?
Oh, we got a lot of work to do.
Oh
Uh,
boy. That's for starters, right?
we need to take more into account. We need to see those who are the least among us.
Mm. Oh,
Now,
Gracie says, Amen, amen. Preach this. Wow.
I like Gracie.
All right. That's good. It's all good. So, at the end of the day, would you be? I was going to think about something with regards to non government organizations. And the reason why I ask, I want to look that because is I've seen situations where mostly it's the young people, the youths, that are misaligned, misled. They're looking for mentors. They're looking for people as examples of leadership. They're looking for it everywhere and they can't seem to find it. Is there that opportunity, maybe even in the area that you live, that you can work with young children, young people, like, say, for example, in the schools or those non government organizations that take the opportunity to take children off the streets and help them get empowered and that kind of thing? Are you in that position now where you can share your powerful story with children of that age, the youths that need that kind of guidance and that sense of hope that they can have a better life?
I would absolutely love to, but it's very
Mm,
difficult for somebody of my background to stand
Ah,
up in front of students, because these schools are so concerned about traumatizing kids
yeah, yeah,
vicariously that they
yeah.
won't allow somebody like me to speak.
Wow.
And what they're doing is they're actually setting up these young kids to be in more danger.
Yeah, it's so sad. It
Yeah.
is so sad. And they're the ones, Amanda, that I think need so much more help because, hey, that's our future. That's
Yeah.
our tomorrow. And the hope and the promise of what we have that we can't accomplish, they just might be able to do it. But if we can't bridge the gap that exists between they and us, how are we going to do it? I don't know. But it's something to look at. So, in terms of your book talks, have you had the opportunity to do many book talks?
I love doing them. Uh, yeah, probably my favorite was my release for my autobiography. When that came out in June of 2021, I got together a small group of people, and I had my own event that we held in a church. And I sat up on stage with a panel of speakers, and I got to ask them questions and have them define human trafficking and talk about their own stories and why
Yeah.
they got involved. Oh my gosh, that was probably one of the most rewarding events I've ever been a part of. And I was just the host.
Wow. Sounds wonderful. Sounds wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Amanda. Now, in terms of professional help, whether it be a psychotherapist or a sociologist or psychologist or psychiatrist, um, how important a role do these people play in the process of recovery with regards to people that have been through tremendous trauma?
A lot of people are going to not like that I say this, but they are very important.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even want to admit their importance for a long time because I had a bad experience with one when I was quite young.
Okay.
And then when I was an adult, when they first sent me to a therapist, the first one that I saw, she was terrible and I traumatized her severely. She ended up leaving the practice and quitting her
Hmm.
job and going and doing
Hmm.
something else. And they had to give me a second therapist. And the second therapist, I went in angry and I told her, I don't trust therapists, and these are the reasons why, and you're going to have to pay that price. And she stood up to me and said, I'll do what I can.
Wow.
It's important to recognize that if you've had a bad experience with a therapist or two therapists or eight therapists, they're not going to take it personally if you say, you're not working out for me. I need to find somebody that I can talk to. More
Yeah.
than 90% of all people lie to their therapist, the person they're spending money on to be able to
Hmm.
help them. They're
Wow.
lying to them. How are you going to lie to somebody that you're paying to help you? You
Yeah.
have to find somebody you can be honest with. And if you can't be honest with them, you're seeing the wrong person.
Yeah. That's quite true. As a life and development coach, I understand that two facets are extremely important in building a relationship with my coachee and my coaching partner. It is, first of all, trust.
Mhm.
We must have trust for each other. And secondly, you have to be willing to do the work. It takes work to get your mindset to change, it takes work to get your heart set to change. And sometimes when I use terms like emotional intelligence, situational awareness, and neuroplasticity, to some people it may sound like jargon, but it's just words that we use in this profession to describe what we know to be something that the human mind itself is capable of doing. But a lot of people do not trust the process. So if they don't trust the process, they would not trust the person on the other side. Amanda, how did you find it possible to trust yourself enough to open up to people about your personal trauma without knowing whether they were going to judge you or not, or whether you would be on the spot, or whether they would look at you differently or unusual? How was that experience for you when you had to open up and tell people about your trauma?
In 2019, I found out that the last man who trafficked me had made me famous on a pornography website.
Wow, my God.
When that happened, It was with videos that never should have existed of events that I didn't want ever to take place.
Wow.
People were going to judge me if they found that stuff. They were
Mm.
going to judge me anyway. A man asked me for my autograph because of this stuff in a grocery
Oh
store one day.
my.
And I knew that if people were going to be finding me, I needed to start to own my story, or they were going to assume that everything that was being said about me on these pornography websites was true.
Yeah.
I didn't have much of a choice, I think, when it forced me into stepping into this story and owning it and starting to tell the truth of my story. The
Yeah.
first couple of times I started to talk about it, I didn't go into a lot of detail. I was very quiet. I sounded like a little mouse kind of squeaking out the,
Mm.
I survived human trafficking, and that wasn't by choice. And that wasn't by choice. And that wasn't by choice. And eventually I found that I had a lion in my lungs.
Mm.
It was
Wow.
roaring to get out.
Yeah.
I had a story to tell.
Yeah.
And God told me that my story could be somebody else's salvation.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, that's powerful. I see, when I look at the scriptures, I see God fashioning himself after two of the most powerful animals, or one animal and one bird on the planet. And the bird is the eagle. The eagle is one of the most, if not the most powerful bird in the air. And it can soar to heights that many other birds can only dream of. But the greatest gift that the eagle has, besides being able to soar to greater heights, is its ability to have a vision that can see from at least 500 miles clearly. And when I found out that, that kind of like almost freaked me out. And I'm thinking, if we could trust God enough for him to see the future that he already has aligned for us, how much more easier our lives would be if we understand that what we are currently facing is not the end of the vision, but just a part of the process of the vision, and the end is yet to come. But if we leave it up to him, it is always going to work out in our favor because we are his representative, we are his agents. I want to commend you, Amanda, for giving the creator a return on the investment that he has placed in your life. That's what you have done. You're sharing your story, you're making a statement, but you seem to have understood that the vision that God has for you is so great that you are stepping into that process daily, step by step, and you're making it happen. So I will commend you public for that on this podcast, on this program, on this platform.
Thank you.
What are your favorite pastime activities? Let's tone it down a bit.
Oh, gosh. So, other than writing and painting and, oh, gosh, I love to cook.
Oh, there you go.
Oh,
Wow.
so the cookbook that I came out with is called Surviving in the Kitchen: Recipes for Life, Love, and a Full Stomach. Because again, I channeled that need for a sense of control through my cooking.
Yeah.
But another thing that I do really well that people don't really know that much about me, have
Uh-huh.
no idea. I love to play billiards.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, that's
Many, many years
interesting.
ago, probably 23, 25 years ago, I used to play tournaments and was quite good. And I was a little bit of a hustler. I would pay
Oh,
my bills with what I would make off a table in one night.
oh, wow. Interesting, intriguing. What are your favorite foods? I mean, what do you love to cook? Is it Italian, Middle
Oh,
Eastern, European style? What it is? What's your favorite style of cooking?
a little bit of everything. So
Ah,
the other night, I made a French dish with an Italian spin, and it's seared sea scallops with a saffron risotto. Mm. My signature dish is chicken Pierre with prosciutto wrapped asparagus and a rosemary garlic mashed potato.
ooh,
I
Wow.
make a really good homemade pizza with a nice thin crisp crust, and it's loaded up with sausage and bacon and pepperoni and black olives and maybe a few slices of freshly sautéed jalapenos.
Mm,
And
wow.
my favorite food to eat is ice cream.
It's strange that you describe ice cream as a food. It's more like a snack, but I get it. We all entitled to our little peeves
Yeah.
when they come ever so often. That's just what the thing about our lives are, and there's no mystery to that. So thank you so much, Amanda. I just want to share another picture of you because I think we need to give the audience the opportunity to understand that. And wow, this is classy. Wow.
Thank you. I love that for you.
I know you do. Are you into fashion designing as well?
No, but I was a professional model for a number of years.
Ah,
So
there you go. There
I
you
modeled
go.
for Harley Davidson when I was 26. I was on Alias and Will and Grace and a couple of other TV shows and stuff back then. So it's
Wow.
just kind of ingrained in me now.
Mm, wow. So we are coming to the end of this amazing episode with our amazing guests. And I just want to remind our people as you are sitting in the audience, taking in the information that we are sharing with Amanda, to remember our resource directory personnel, the information there that is available to you with regards to those who have been on the program, including Amanda, is free of charge. However, as time go on, if you have made contact with them and it has to go to the next level, there's going to be a cost, there's going to be a charge, but it will not be the full thing. That's the arrangement we have with our people. Also remember that you can download our app for your Android device. Send your requests and your emails to lovebitsa@gmail.com or WhatsApp us at 1-869-664-4365. Remember to support our other programs, Iron Sharpen at Iron, Action Friday, Brooklyn Bible Study, and of course, Breaking Out of Depression. Thought for the week. See your pains today as the framework for your tomorrow. They unlock the door to your character and your future. Amanda, any final words you'd like to say to our audience? They have been quite engaging as we look at the thought for the week.
I want to say a great big thank you to Gracie. It's always nice to have that kind of encouragement when I'm
Oh,
out doing something live like this. And don't be afraid of your own story. Whatever your story is, your story does not own you. You own your story. Step
yeah.
into your story, step into your strength.
Wow. So wonderful. Quite amazing. Now, with regards to sports, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, but maybe we can have some fun as well as we come to the end of the program. I know we spoke about football the last time, and there was a game between the Cowboys and another team. I can't remember, but that's more your husband's style. Are
Yes.
you into any other sports right now, Amanda?
I love the stuff that seems a little unusual. So basketball, baseball, football, all that stuff. To me, that's whatever. That's what everybody else likes. I'm never going to be into what everybody else likes.
Uh huh.
I like watching lacrosse. I
Oh,
love ice hockey. Oh,
okay. Okay.
years ago, I went to a Stanley Cup playoff game where the Kings were playing. This was back when I lived in LA. I had box seats, thanks to a friend of mine named Tim. Hi, Tim. Just, oh my gosh, blew my mind. I've been a hockey fan ever since.
Wow. Amazing. So Gracie says, thank you, Amanda. Blessings. Wow. You made a connection or two. That's wonderful. So, folks, we are coming to the end of the program. We just have 3 more minutes to go. And I'd like to ask Amanda two more questions. In terms of female aspects of things, what kind of advice could you give to young ladies, particularly, in how they can portray themselves among their friends socially in public? To be aware, basically, of the dangers that are out there, and at the same time know if they see something or hear something unusual, how they can possibly take measures to protect themselves against being a potential victim of human trafficking.
We have to pay attention to those red flags.
Uh huh.
As women, we have this terrible tendency to sit back and say, well, it is a red flag, but, and we'll
Yeah.
qualify it. But
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a red flag if he did this or if he said that, or I'm the one that caused this reaction in the first place, or it's because I did XYZ. No, 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 no. If it's a red flag, accept it and understand that it's a red flag and
Mm.
learn how to have healthy boundaries with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Recognize where your lines are and don't let anybody cross them, and have respect for yourself.
Right.
That's where your healthy boundaries are going to come from in the first place.
Wow. Thank you for sharing. That information is extremely vital as we wrap up here on the program, Breaking Out of Depression. This will be our penultimate program for the year 2023. So it's a privilege to have the opportunity to share with you and for Amanda Blackwood to be with us in the studios on Breaking Out of Depression. I want to thank, not I want to thank, I'm thanking all those who have made this program possible. I send a special shout out to all the people, Gracie, Corinne, Honore. Wow, so many people that have looked on and logged on to the program. Pamela Destouche. Yep. The Dominica connection is alive and kicking in the house. So we're gonna log off now, and we'd like to ask Amanda to hold on just for a couple of minutes. There are a couple of questions that our director would like to. Yes, Benjamin Oge. Let me see if I get that name correct. I'm looking for it. Wow. Okay, Benjamin. There it is. Ogaru Maurice. Benjamin Ogaru Maurice. Thank you so much. It's on the screen. There it is. Thank you so much for your continued commitment and your continued support to making this program a success as we continue to work together to build a community of people that would be there for each other, that would support each other, that would help each other become enlightened and focus on growth, empowerment, development, inspiration, and transformation for many who are challenged with mental illness, depression, anxiety, withdrawal, burnout, trauma. We will see you on the next program, God's willing. It may be the last program to let you know what is happening. And as we continue, please continue to pray for us and the many guests that have been on the program. Remember, always take care of yourself first so that you can take care of others as well. We thank you for being with us and take every opportunity. Someone just said very encouraging words, Amanda. Corinne Nichols. Very encouraging words, Amanda. Thank you. She acknowledges.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes. Until next time, this is Andy on behalf of our guest, Amanda Blackwood, and our team behind the works, led by Brother Dexter Honore. I'm saying Godspeed, God bless, and keep the faith. And remember that your story matters and you can own it. It is yours. Do everything you can so that we always have the opportunity to break out of depression. Bye for now. Until next time. Take care.